born in 1949 and adopted from the Methodist Children's Home in New Orleans. My mom and dad, my mother had one daughter and divorced and remarried, and they couldn't have any more children. And so they fostered and et cetera, et cetera. And a friend of ours here in the neighborhood said, "There's a young lady down in New Orleans that looks a lot like you, Bertha," which was my mother. She's 15 years old and she's pregnant. Would you be interested? I guess they must have been. So the story is that they went down to see me, and I think this is kind of comical to tie into where life is. My dad was there, and my mother said he walked around the room for about 5 minutes, and then he came back and he says, "Give me the baby, nobody's looking." So private, you don't show your emotions. You don't do things that let people, you're not going to be vulnerable. So I was raised here in Central, went to this church up until 66, 67. Things just changed. My dad passed away in 1967, which was very unfortunate, 47 years old. So that was a big change in my life. And back to where I said about the vulnerability, my mother and sister didn't handle his death well at all. And when we got home from the funeral, we lived in Tanglewood, and so we got there, and everybody did what you do when you get home and had a meal and kind of sitting around, and I disappeared. And my brother-in-law was there, and somebody said, "Where's Duane? We can't find him." He said, "I think he's probably down on Cypress Bayou." "Why Cypress Bayou?" So that's where he and Tony hunted. So I could go there, be alone with my dad in my way, and nobody knew it. So I had it hidden, my vulnerability. Ooh, you're not going to see me cry or anything like that. So life throws those different things at you. I ended up getting married. I had 4 children and go through that, divorce, et cetera. And then the people, most of you here know Dodie. And so we had 2 girls. A lot transpired in that time period that impacted me. And I mentioned the vulnerability because a gentleman approached me at work. I worked for Exxon. Both Dodie and I worked at Exxon. And I was walking across the parking lot from the main office, and he hollered at me, and I walked over and talked to him. And he said, "How about going into Angola with me for a Kairos weekend?" And I looked at him like he'd lost his mind. I said, "Why in the world do I want to go in there? Those guys deserve to be in prison." So he said, "Think about it." And obviously God works in myriads of ways with us. And very frequently it's ways that you don't expect. He slips those little things in just to make you think. Okay. And so I began to, as I tell people, I began to have back pains that said, "Why are you turning my children down?" I didn't turn you down. You were adopted. I was there for you when you went through your dad's death. You came through the divorce, and look where you are now. You got a beautiful wife, all these children. So why are you turning down my children? So I said, "Okay, I'll go." So I went for my first one in 1999, and I've been doing Kairos ever since. People who have been in prison, we all have heard the nickname a con. Well, you can't con a con. Where I'm getting at is that we had to learn to be vulnerable ourselves to those guys, to not look at them as the crime committing person, but as another human being. And know that we're going to put ourselves on the line going in there, and how are they going to respond to us? So if you're not vulnerable yourself to those people, they're not going to receive you and receive the story that you're bringing of how God impacted your life and what He can do for them. I cannot change their sentence. I can't change what got them there to begin with, But if they're vulnerable enough to accept and learn that There's some responsibility on both sides of the fence on things. That if you're willing to give in to God, He'll do things for you that you never expected. Even when you're in a situation that's not most favorable, He'll make life better for you. And so since 1999, with working with the prison ministry, I've seen tremendous growth in men who were hard and they softened. We all know what PDO is next door. And I talked to Terry one day, and the director over there, and I said, would you get the kids to make me some placemats? And we have a sheet of paper yay big, and they can draw pictures on it, they can fill out what they, and it's humorous what kids will do. For a 4-year-old to put on there, I've been bad and God forgave me, I know He forgives you. For a man in prison, that says a lot, because kids don't have an agenda. They can look at you and me and say, what's your agenda? What are you after? What do you want? Those little kids, no, they're just straightforward. We were there at this event, and my wife, Dodie, was sitting there beside me, and there's a young man gets up, and he holds up a picture. It's a boat. It was supposed to be Noah's Ark, but for him, it wasn't Noah's Ark. He got in prison selling drugs, and it broke his dad's heart, and they didn't talk. That's tough. But when he saw that picture, he happened to get it on Friday for lunch. It made him think of the fact that he and his dad worked on a boat together and how much that meant to him. And on Sunday, somebody called the prison and said, I need to come see my son. Did that child? Nah, I don't think so. Somebody else with a higher power made that all tie together. But we know that his dad came to see him and their relationship got reestablished. I look at her and she's crying. I got a few tears here and he's crying. God was at work. There was vulnerability. So for you who've ever been hurt, you're going to have to trust us a little bit, because sometimes we're afraid, don't even know how to help you. But when we both are willing to be vulnerable to say, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do, I'm just here. And you say, I need a hug. I need to be reassured that I'm valuable and loved. And God will work through us. And the possibilities are just so huge. And when your heart can sing, because you see that person blossom back out and feel their worth and love that God had for them all the time, that we humans hadn't necessarily shown, then you have a different song in your heart. I just hope that you, whoever you are, wherever you are, that you remember that don't be quick to judge. Don't be like me in 1999 when I said, no, they deserve to be where they are. We can be that sounding board or that listening ear, but we've got to be vulnerable enough to show our own self and let them have that opportunity to walk into that open set of arms that God's using us to be.